the skills for psychic awakening and psychic powers, that we all have a soul, and the soul comes, the psyche, soul, and so all of that, if you understand that. So maybe we should talk about that, but we've got nanotechnology. Stephen Colbern, he goes by Steve Colbern. He's been on several radio shows, and he has been to many conferences, and he met Janet at one up in Northern California a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, but we're talking nanotechnology and Janet, manipulation of matter, the atomic, molecular, supramolecular scale. Oh, you did, didn't you? So Janet's helping because she's an ET experiencer, and she began with me and Tommy Huxley back in 2012, and we saw all three gone our own separate ways with our own radio shows here on Blog Talk, but we've done a really super job of all joining and getting it out there to the public in the ways that we market, but we still like to come together and share, and we all have that we can share and download, so we hope you will do that. So that's my little commercial. So back to Stephen Colbert. I wish. No offense. Steve Colbern. Steve Colbern.
Can we perhaps have some people call in with some questions about nanotechnology? Or
do you have any?
No, it'd be better if you discuss it. Okay. It'd be better if you discuss it, because the reason is most people aren't going to know about nanotechnology, and if they do, they can look it up on Google. So we use Google for that. But the reason is I could let somebody on here if you want to talk to somebody else.
Well, that's all right. We can discuss it a little bit more. I'll just continue where I left off. I explained what single-wall carbon nanotubes are. There's also double-wall and multi-wall carbon nanotubes where you have one or more carbon nanotubes inside another, look kind of like Russian dolls, and you can have up to perhaps 10 or so layers, and of course those are much larger diameter than the single-wall carbon nanotubes in general. Double-wall carbon nanotubes are actually very interesting because they're more conductive than single-wall carbon nanotubes, because there's a higher probability that if you have two, there's a higher probability that one of them is metallic and has the high conductivity. So we did a lot of work with small diameter double-wall carbon nanotubes in my old job, and I found a way to make carbon nanotube wafer material. They call it wafer material, which is it's this stuff that looks like it's kind of reminiscent of I guess stainless steel or something. It's really springy, and it's very flexible, and it's
how
quite
strong
durable.
is it compared to titanium? Since you're mentioning that.
It's very strong for its thickness. I mean, we had pieces that were only about 30 microns thick that would stand up to several pounds of force. Compared to titanium, it's probably about a fourth as strong as titanium, I guess. Which it would be way stronger than titanium if you could make it defect-free. This is just an initial attempt, but we found some solvents that actually dissolve single-wall and double-wall carbon nanotubes, and you can evaporate the solvent and make it into this wafer material, and it's conductive, and it's quite strong. So one problem that the industry has come up against with carbon nanotubes is that there are dozens of different in single-wall carbon nanotubes, there are dozens of different chiralities and diameters of these things, and they all have different properties. And so it would be very good if you could separate each type and purify it, and that's been done by solvent, surfactant, and centrifuge-based processes, but it's very, very expensive. And so what we still need to find is a relatively cheap process, or much cheaper process, to separate these things into their different chiralities.
Well, in medical, are they patented?
One type. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, in medical, now I've heard this, now correct me if I'm wrong, this is your thing, and I'm just floating the surface on nanorobotics in medical field, but I had heard, or somebody told me they swallowed a camera like in a capsule. Now, is that dealing with nanotechnology or not? And if so, what is that they're swallowing?
Well,
small
in
cameras?
this day and age, just normal silicon-based electronics are small enough where you could put a camera in a capsule. You don't necessarily need to have nanotechnology for that, but they're talking about doing things like having cameras in a grain of sand, or something that size or smaller.
I was told we've had that for over 1,000 years in our video game consoles. We just aren't aware of it, like we're not aware of fractal parts in our cell phones.
Well,
the honeycomb and the fractal.
The military is always at least 50 years ahead of civilian technology. A lot of people don't know that, so it's possible.
I heard 1,000 years. I've heard 1,000.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's at least 50. Some people say 100. I'd never heard 1,000, but it's certainly possible if they were using reverse engineered alien technology. The aliens.
Now, I heard that recently.
It's hard to say how far advanced they are, but
YouTube.
I used to think it was only a few. They were only a few hundred years in advance of us, but boy, I was sure wrong about that. I've seen them do some stuff that I can't explain. There's no even theoretical way to do it, but they did it.
They used to say 300.
Apparently,
yeah, depends on who's providing it.
Right, because they don't really share everything. Apparently, between the species, they do covet some of the technology, and they just don't share it. Apparently, like the Chinese are mad at the Americans because we were given a higher level technology than what they have. So the Chinese are still using rocket type things and launching a rocket. And same with the Russians, but the Americans have the TR-3B and the
they have a lot more than that. That's just what's known to the
they have a
public.
lot more than that. But they have.
The U.S. government's got anti-gravity technology perfected since the 1990s, is my understanding.
Right. So
they were experimenting with it in the 80s, and they lost a bunch of test pilots perfecting it, but they finally did so.
Right. So we have even more advanced technology. But apparently. But there's species like the sphere-being lions. They have what's it called? Level 8. The energy. I have to go look it up. Sorry, I'm not really using the right term. But they have much more advanced than anybody else. So that's how they're.
I wouldn't agree with that.
Going here.
But I'm not on one of those panels.
This is the story.
Right.
When you were let me ask you, TJ, a couple questions. Oh, I want to say one thing. When one time I had a man come to me and he said that he was a SEAL in the 80s. He got injured. He was over Middle East. They life flighted him to either France or Germany to an American American hospital there, and they used nanotechnology, and they did send a camera through his bloodstream. So he had a copy of the movie, and so he was talking to me, and he was confessing all this stuff, and I don't know his name, so no, I don't even remember his name. I didn't want his name. I just was, taking the report because he wanted to, tell me this stuff's going on. This is back in '95 that he told me this. So anyway, this has been around for a long time.
The problem with putting a camera down somebody's bloodstream is that you wouldn't be able to see very far for all the red cells there. But if it was close enough to the walls.
It may have been some other. Yeah, it may have been some
other
system.
No, it was just swallowing.
A 95, I don't remember. Maybe he swallowed it. Anyway, it followed down with whatever it was to where the injury was, and he was able to get a recording of the repairs from the inside with this nanotechnology, something like that. But that was a long time ago, and my memory is
that was on
the
planet, though. That's on planet, not off planet, right?
Right. So that was rumored
humans.
to be. That was humans.
Yeah.
That was not off planet. But off planet, what they're saying they have is just like on Battlestar Galactica. You get wounded, you lose an arm, you lose a head, you get killed. They put you in this bad material, and they revive you because the super soldiers are so valuable that death is not an option. They do not allow them to die, and they revive them over and over because they're highly trained and very valuable.
Well, they're talking about making medical nanobots that can automatically repair damage to the body, kind of like the Borg have on Star Trek, where you get a wound and it automatically heals in a matter of seconds or minutes. And I know that it's possible to make a beam that heals things like a factor of between 10 and 100 faster than normal, like Dr. McCoy had on Star Trek. The aliens use that technology as well. If you combine the two, I would think that the being combining those two technologies would be virtually immortal, unless you got completely blown up or something.
So some species live hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years, and some species have shorter life expectancies. So TJ, we have 20 minutes left. I'd like to ask you some questions.
I'll tell you.
With Steve being here.
18 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So TJ was on. She's in the secret space program, and she was also in a lot of the secret space program people. Not many, but some have a cover job, which is their real life job, and that's how they get a paycheck. Right. And then they're actually spies or in the secret space program. So TJ's in the category where she had a front job, which was her, one why she got a paycheck, and then her other job she did behind the scenes. So she's been in the military. I was on Johnson Atoll, which is a military base, and I was civilian, but apparently I had a function there too. And I
work internationally, Steve.
Seems like a cool place.
I'm on the international council.
I've always wanted to go there.
I do advisory council. I do advisory council work, intergovernment relations and intergalactic relations, but it's a totally different level of existence than Solar Ward or 20 and Back programs.
Yeah,
so
sorry. Why don't
I get
you
tickled.
Talk about TJ and I have had lots
non-governmental organizations.
and she gets shy about talking about her stuff on, and I'm telling
self-disclosure.
Just bring this out. If you bring it out, you're going to shift the whole planet and move on to the Randy Kramer. Here comes T.J. Morris.
Blow him out the woods.
What would you like to say? What would you like to say today on the show with Steve, so he can witness you and you can, talk to somebody besides me? What would you like to say?
Steve, you haven't worked in the government, but you've done contractual work, non-government organizations with. The reason I'm asking, we have an international council of nanotechnology.
I think so. I have reason to believe they loan me out to the government once in a while, but I have memories along those lines. I'm not sure what to make of some of them, but we'll discuss that some other time.
All right. Well, we have we have an advocacy program, and I think Janet's wanting to know who's running it, but I have the Allied Command, and we work globally, universally, and basically we're coming out at an international level because we're working on we're working on ISS, the International Space ship, maybe spacecraft, but anyway, we have that locally, but we have many countries working on it. And we have NASA right here, but they work with globally. So that's one level, internationally, we'll say. And then you compare that in space, that's one level. So I can talk about that, but, we have plenty of engineers, scientists, and even physicists.
So what have you done, TJ? Talk about yourself. What have you done?
I have personally worked at a higher level because I have those personalities like a traveler, an observer, an archivist, a historian. And yet, when I was chosen, and that's what they called it, so like Bill Tompkins, you plug into the Corey Good, Bill Tompkins, Emery Smith, Michael Sala, because they're the one on the entertainment industry with Dr. Stephen Greer, and they're all approved, and we're using some of the old CIA, NSA, FBI people. So everybody read Dr. Bruce Maccabee's book, please, and Colonel Philip Corso's book.
Talk about yourself for 5 minutes.
International Council on Nanotechnology is important. It's important because that's where we're going at the smallest, minutest on one thing, and why Steve's on here. But Steve and I haven't had a chance to discuss are levels of existence, and each person that knows me, I only go to the level that they have a acknowledgement of or can